Welcome to Quiz Cues. This is amazing. Are you ready to play Cluephoria? Guess the answer quickly to score more points. Clues are revealed one by one. After the last clue, the answer is revealed. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Are you ready? Let's go! Who am I? I was a scientist whose theories changed how humanity understands space and time. My wild white hair and mustache made me one of the most recognizable physicists in history. My famous equation, E equals mc squared, showed that energy and mass are two forms of the same thing. Albert Einstein. Einstein was a German theoretical physicist whose theory of relativity reshaped modern science. His famous equation and wild-haired image remain global symbols of genius, more than half a century after his death. Who am I? I was a powerful ruler of an ancient civilization along the Nile River. I formed romantic and political alliances with two of Rome's most famous generals. Legend says I died by the bite of an asp after the defeat of my fleet at Actium. Cleopatra. Cleopatra was the last active pharaoh of ancient Egypt and a brilliant political strategist who allied with Rome. Her dramatic life, romances with Julius Caesar and Mark Antony, and mysterious death have made her an enduring icon of antiquity. Who am I? I was a blonde actress who became one of Hollywood's most photographed stars. My iconic white dress blowing over a subway grate is one of cinema's most recreated images. I famously sang that diamonds are a girl's best friend in a pink satin gown. Marilyn Monroe. Monroe was a 1950s Hollywood actress and model who became America's ultimate blonde bombshell. Her tragic early death at 36 cemented her status as a pop culture and fashion legend still referenced today. Who am I? I was an English playwright whose works are performed more than any other writers. I wrote tragedies, comedies, and histories for a famous London theater called the Globe. I invented over 1,700 English words, including bedroom, eyeball, and break the ice. William Shakespeare. Shakespeare was an English playwright and poet widely considered the greatest writer in the English language. His 37 plays and countless coined phrases still shape literature, film, and everyday speech 4 centuries later. Who am I? I was a Renaissance artist whose curiosity extended far beyond painting. I filled secret notebooks with mirror writing, anatomical sketches, and flying machine designs. My portrait of a woman with an enigmatic smile is the most visited painting on Earth. Leonardo da Vinci. Leonardo da Vinci was an Italian Renaissance polymath whose genius spanned art, science, engineering, and anatomy. The Mona Lisa and The Last Supper remain two of the most studied and reproduced artworks in human history. Who am I? I was a military commander who rose from humble origins to rule an empire. I crowned myself Emperor of France and led disastrous campaigns into Russia during winter. I am famously depicted with one hand tucked into my vest and died in exile on the island of St. Helena. Napoleon Bonaparte. Napoleon was a French military leader who rose from obscurity to rule a vast European empire. His legal code, military tactics, and dramatic defeat at Waterloo made him one of history's most debated figures. Who am I? I was a pop singer whose music videos and dance moves changed entertainment forever. I wore a single sequined glove and recorded the best-selling album of all time. I debuted the moonwalk during a 1983 television special while performing Billie Jean. Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson was the king of pop whose music videos and stage performances transformed global entertainment. Despite controversy, his albums remain among the best-selling ever, and his dance innovations are still imitated worldwide. Who am I? I was a painter whose work became far more valuable after my death than during my life. I was a Dutch post-impressionist who painted swirling night skies and vibrant sunflowers. I cut off part of my own ear during a mental health crisis and died from a gunshot at age 37. Vincent van Gogh. Van Gogh was a Dutch post-impressionist painter whose bold colors and emotional brushwork influenced modern art. Though he sold almost nothing during his life, his paintings now command among the highest prices ever paid for art. Who am I? I was an American minister who became the voice of a major 20th century equality movement. I organized peaceful marches and boycotts across the American South during the 1950s and 1960s. On August 28, 1963, I delivered a historic speech beginning with "I Have a Dream" on the steps of the Lincoln Memorial. Martin Luther King Jr. Martin Luther King Jr. was an American Baptist minister who became the most visible leader of the civil rights movement. His nonviolent activism and unforgettable speeches helped end legal segregation and inspired freedom movements globally. Who am I? I was a beloved public figure known for my compassion, fashion, and charity work. I married into the British royal family and became known as the People's Princess. In 1987, I shook hands with an AIDS patient without gloves on live television, breaking global stigma. Princess Diana. Princess Diana was a member of the British royal family who became the most photographed woman in the world. Her humanitarian work, especially with AIDS patients and landmine victims, redefined what it meant to be a modern princess. Who am I? I was a tech visionary who turned computers into objects of desire and cultural status. I co-founded a California tech company, was pushed out, and returned years later to save it from bankruptcy. I launched the iPod, iPhone, and iPad, and died of pancreatic cancer in 2011, just one day after the iPhone 4S announcement. Steve Jobs. Steve Jobs was an American technology entrepreneur who co-founded Apple and transformed multiple industries. His product launches and design philosophy turned consumer electronics into cultural events and status symbols. Who am I? I was a composer whose music is still played in concert halls worldwide centuries later. I was a child prodigy who performed for European royalty before age 6 and wrote over 600 compositions. I died at 35 while composing a requiem mass that was finished by a student after my mysterious death. Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart. Mozart was an Austrian composer who created masterpieces across every Western musical genre. His staggering output of over 600 works, written in just 30 years, remains central to the classical repertoire worldwide. Who am I? I was a film star who became one of the most recognizable faces in early cinema. I was a silent film actor famous for playing a lovable tramp in a bowler hat and tattered suit. I wrote, directed, produced, and starred in my films, and my Hitler satire, The Great Dictator, featured a famous anti-fascist speech. Charlie Chaplin. Charlie Chaplin was an English comic actor who became the biggest star of the silent film era. His tramp character and later political courage influenced cinema forever, making him one of the most important figures in film history. Who am I? I was an American pilot who traveled beyond Earth's atmosphere during the Cold War space race. I commanded a historic 1969 NASA mission that carried 3 astronauts toward the moon. My first words after stepping onto the lunar surface were, "That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind." Neil Armstrong. Neil Armstrong was an American astronaut and aeronautical engineer who commanded the first moon landing mission. His calm demeanor under pressure and iconic first words remain symbols of humanity's greatest exploratory achievement. Who am I? I was an inventor whose creations changed how people lived, worked, and entertained themselves. I was a prolific American inventor who held over 1,000 patents and worked on sound recording, motion pictures, and electric power. My development of the first practical incandescent light bulb and the world's first industrial research lab earned me the nickname Wizard of Menlo Park. Thomas Edison. Thomas Edison was an American inventor whose creations transformed modern daily life. His development of the light bulb, phonograph, and motion pictures earned him over 1,000 patents and the nickname Wizard of Menlo Park. Who am I? I was a painter whose career spanned most of the 20th century and produced tens of thousands of works. I was a Spanish artist who co-founded Cubism and painted fractured, multi-perspective forms. My anti-war mural depicting the bombing of a Basque town became one of history's most powerful anti-war artworks. Pablo Picasso. Picasso was a Spanish painter and sculptor who co-founded Cubism and produced over 50,000 artworks. His anti-war masterpiece, Guernica, and ever-changing styles made him the most influential artist of the 20th century. Who am I? I was a mathematician and scientist whose work laid foundations for modern physics. I served as Master of the Royal Mint and President of the Royal Society in 17th century England. An apple falling from a tree allegedly inspired my law of universal gravitation, and I invented calculus to explain planetary motion. Isaac Newton. Isaac Newton was an English mathematician and physicist whose laws of motion and gravitation dominated physics for centuries. His work laid the groundwork for the Enlightenment and every subsequent engineering and space achievement. Who am I? I was an elegant actress whose style is still copied by fashion lovers decades later. I won an Oscar for my first major film role and later became a UNICEF Goodwill Ambassador. I played a New York socialite eating pastry outside Tiffany's while wearing a Givenchy little black dress. Audrey Hepburn. Audrey Hepburn was a Belgian-born British actress and humanitarian who defined Hollywood elegance. Her iconic film roles and later UNICEF ambassadorship made her a timeless symbol of grace both on and off screen. Who am I? I was an athlete whose charisma and political convictions made me a global icon. I was a heavyweight boxing champion who boasted, "I am the greatest," and float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. I changed my name from Cassius Clay after joining the Nation of Islam and later lit the Olympic cauldron in Atlanta. Muhammad Ali. Muhammad Ali was an American boxer who became the first 3-time heavyweight champion of the world. His civil rights activism, religious conversion, and legendary trash talk made him one of the most significant athletes in history. Who am I? I was a singer whose hip movement scandalized conservative audiences in the 1950s. I was dubbed the King of Rock and Roll and recorded hits at Sun Studio in Memphis, Tennessee. I died in my Graceland bathroom in 1977, and my impersonators now outnumber nearly every other celebrity tribute act. Elvis Presley. Elvis Presley was an American singer and actor who fused country, gospel, and blues into rock and roll. His hip-shaking performances, Vegas jumpsuits, and tragic death at 42 made him an enduring icon of 20th century culture. Who am I? I was a daring pilot who broke gender barriers in the early days of aviation. I was the first woman to fly solo non-stop across the Atlantic Ocean in 1932. I disappeared over the Pacific Ocean in 1937 during an attempted around-the-world flight, and my fate remains unsolved. Amelia Earhart. Amelia Earhart was an American aviation pioneer who broke numerous flight records and gender barriers. Her mysterious disappearance during a 1937 round-the-world attempt remains one of history's most fascinating unsolved cases. Who am I? I was a political leader who won my country's independence through nonviolent resistance. I was an Indian lawyer who used hunger strikes, salt marches, and peaceful protest against British rule. I wore only a simple hand-woven dhoti, was called Mahatma, meaning great soul, and was assassinated in 1948. Mahatma Gandhi? Mahatma Gandhi was an Indian lawyer who led his country's independence movement through nonviolent civil disobedience. His philosophy of peaceful resistance influenced civil rights leaders from Martin Luther King Jr. to Nelson Mandela. Who am I? I was a statesman whose words rallied a nation during its darkest military hour. I served as British Prime Minister during World War II and was rarely seen without a cigar. My "We shall fight on the beaches" speech and defiant V for victory sign became symbols of wartime resilience. Winston Churchill. Winston Churchill was a British statesman and prime minister who led the Allies to victory in World War II. His bulldog determination, stirring oratory, and voluminous historical writings earned him the Nobel Prize in Literature. Who am I? I was a nun who devoted my life to caring for the poorest and sickest people in society. I founded a religious congregation in Kolkata that operates hospices and orphanages around the world. I won the Nobel Peace Prize in 1979 and was canonized as a saint by Pope Francis in 2016. Mother Teresa. Mother Teresa was an Albanian Indian Catholic nun who founded the Missionaries of Charity in Kolkata. Her lifelong service to the dying and destitute earned her the Nobel Peace Prize and eventual canonization as Saint Teresa. Who am I? I was a naturalist whose observations during a long sea voyage changed scientific thought. I studied finches and giant tortoises in the Galapagos Islands aboard a ship called the HMS Beagle. My 1859 book on the origin of species introduced the theory of evolution by natural selection. Charles Darwin. Charles Darwin was an English naturalist whose 5-year voyage aboard the HMS Beagle transformed scientific understanding. His theory of evolution by natural selection remains the foundation of modern biological science. Who am I? I was a martial artist who brought Eastern philosophy to Western cinema audiences. I was a Hong Kong American actor who created my own fighting style called Jeet Kune Do. I starred in only 4 complete films before dying at 32, and my Be Water speech remains one of pop culture's most quoted philosophies. Bruce Lee. Bruce Lee was a Hong Kong American martial artist, actor, and philosopher who revolutionized action cinema. Despite completing only 4 films before his death at 32, his influence on martial arts and fitness culture is immeasurable. Who am I? I was a Tudor monarch whose reign was marked by political and religious upheaval. I had 6 wives, 2 of whom I executed, and I split England from the Roman Catholic Church. I composed music, wrote poetry, and grew from a handsome athletic youth into an obese tyrant with a festering leg wound. Henry VIII was King of England from 1509 to 1547, whose reign reshaped English religion and politics. His 6 tumultuous marriages, break with Rome, and violent temper made him one of history's most notorious monarchs. Who am I? I was a Roman general whose name became a title for emperors across history. I conquered Gaul, crossed the Rubicon River, and had a famous romance with Egypt's last pharaoh. I was stabbed 23 times by senators on the Ides of March, and Shakespeare dramatized my final moments. Julius Caesar. Julius Caesar was a Roman general and statesman whose military conquests and political reforms changed the ancient world. His assassination on the Ides of March triggered the fall of the Roman Republic and the rise of imperial rule. Who am I? I was a physician whose theories about the unconscious mind shaped modern psychology. I was an Austrian neurologist who treated patients by having them free associate while lying on a leather couch. I proposed that dreams reveal hidden desires, identified the Oedipus complex, and used a cigar as my trademark prop. Sigmund Freud. Sigmund Freud was an Austrian neurologist who founded psychoanalysis and revolutionized our understanding of the mind. His theories about dreams, the unconscious, and childhood development shaped psychology, art, and literature for generations. Who am I? I was an activist whose quiet act of defiance sparked a major civil rights movement. I was a seamstress in Montgomery, Alabama, who refused a bus driver's order in 1955. I refused to give up my seat to a white passenger on a segregated bus, catalyzing a 381-day boycott. Rosa Parks. Rosa Parks was an American civil rights activist whose quiet refusal changed the course of U.S. history. Her act of defiance on a Montgomery bus in 1955 sparked a year-long boycott and launched Martin Luther King Jr. into national prominence. Who am I? I was an Italian explorer whose Atlantic voyages opened the age of exploration. I sailed west under the Spanish flag in 3 famous ships, the Nina, Pinta, and Santa Maria. I reached the Caribbean in 1492 while searching for Asia, and I never actually set foot on mainland North America. Christopher Columbus. Christopher Columbus was an Italian explorer whose 1492 voyage across the Atlantic opened the Americas to European colonization. Though he never reached Asia as intended, his expeditions initiated an era of global exchange and conquest. Who am I? I was a composer whose symphonies are still performed by orchestras worldwide. I was a German musician who began going deaf in my late 20s, yet continued writing masterpieces. My 9th symphony contains the Ode to Joy, and I continued conducting after the orchestra finished because I could not hear. Ludwig van Beethoven. Beethoven was a German composer whose symphonies and sonatas bridged the classical and romantic eras. His defiant composition despite profound deafness remains one of the most moving stories of artistic triumph over adversity. Who am I? I was an animator whose imagination built one of the world's biggest entertainment empires. I created an iconic mouse character in 1928 and opened a California theme park in 1955. I was the original voice of Mickey Mouse, won 22 Academy Awards, and rumors persist that my body was cryogenically frozen. Walt Disney. Walt Disney was an American animator and entrepreneur who built a multimedia entertainment empire from a cartoon mouse. His theme parks, films, and characters created a fantasy universe that shaped global childhood culture for decades. Who am I? I was a young writer whose personal account gave the world an intimate look at life under persecution. I was a Jewish girl who hid with my family in a secret Amsterdam annex for 2 years during World War II. My diary, published by my father after I died at 15 in a concentration camp, has sold over 30 million copies in 70+ languages. Anne Frank. Anne Frank was a Jewish teenager whose diary documented 2 years hiding from the Nazis in occupied Amsterdam. Her candid, hopeful writings became one of the world's most read books, giving a human face to the Holocaust's 6 million victims. Did you keep track of your score? Post it in the comments. We'd love to hear it. Thanks for playing Cluephoria. See you in the next game.